Good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1. It is a wet Tuesday night, the 5th of October 2021. Here are your headlines for tonight.
Grades 1 to 5 of schools with less than 200 students to recommence on the 21st of October. Teachers take to the streets on Teachers' Day. Sri Lanka would not be used in any effort that would threaten India's security, an assurance from the President. Farmlands turn into demonstration sites due to the fertilizer crisis. Plans afoot to import organic fertilizer from India via air freight for the Maha season. Farmers expressed dismay over the shortage of fertilizer during season meeting. Wildlife officers held by village residents until elephants are chased away.
Our top story for tonight. Agriculture Minister Mahindananda Alutkamage says Sri Lanka would even air freight fertilizer from India for the Maha cultivating season.
How the standards of local fertilizer would be identified and what steps would be taken to avert a fertilizer shortage during the Maha season if there are delays in importing a stock. That is because the Maha season contributes the most to the agricultural business sector.
There will be no fertilizer shortage simply because we halted imports from China. We wanted to import a nitrogen variety from China. It is a booster. 3 types of organic fertilizer required for the Maha season is ready. A consignment of potassium chloride will arrive in the country on the 10th. The Maha cultivation season begins on the 15th of October in the Ampara district. On the 12th, we will distribute the fertilizer through all agrarian services centers. We are discussing with India to import nano nitrogen. If there are delays, we will bring them down on an air freight. Therefore, we will distribute fertilizer without any shortage during the Maha season. The plant quarantine unit had approved the Indian products. We have received lab reports showing it can be used in Sri Lanka. Therefore, we will bring it down before the 15th even through an air freight.
During the debate, MP Rohini Kaviratne questioned whether there were harmful pests in the consignment imported from China recently. As people who know history, I wish to ask whether there were pests in addition to the harmful bacteria in the fertilizer imported from a company named Kindavo in China. China is a highly populated country. Samples must be tested for heavy metals. Have these tests been done? If that is the case, submit a report on that.
According to the standards set out by the Standards Institute, we can't import anything that is harmful to the people, animals or plants. We definitely test for heavy metals. I wish to tell you that as the Agriculture Minister, I will not allow such harmful things to happen under my watch.
There
is a suspicion that bacteria like Erwinia and Bacillus were found. Erwinia has been identified. I cannot conduct the tests that you are referring to. There is a law in the country.
The reports focus on whether there is bacteria or similar substances harmful to the people. The other report focuses on whether there is anything harmful to plants. But none of these reports say whether there were heavy metals. I didn't see it mentioning any harmful chemicals either. I would be happy if it is proven scientifically. We need to know what the country needs to be working in a lab or anywhere else. Since the test report failed, it is said that the ships were returned. We have also heard the fertilizer from the same company will reach the country in another 10 days. Don't lie. Tell me the truth. Will fertilizer be imported from that company or not?
Don't write such letters as it would turn out to be a curse. You wrote that garbage was imported from China. Therefore, we didn't do things of that nature. The official lab report shows that there are no heavy metals. Those may be found in the samples tested at your lab.
The Ministry of Education says 3,000 schools in the country with less than 200 students can reopen on the 21st of this month.
Lessons in schools that will reopen on the 21st of this month will only be limited to primary grades. This decision was made after meetings between Education Ministry officials and provincial governors. Meanwhile, the Ceylon teachers' youth protests at 312 zonal education offices on Teachers' Day tomorrow.
We know
today is World Teachers' Day. It would be celebrated in Sri Lanka tomorrow. The theme for this year's Teachers' Day is Teachers at the Heart of Education Recovery. But teachers aren't satisfied at present. There is a serious problem over the salaries of teachers. A solution is needed. We hope that the cabinet will decide on a solution today. Otherwise, we will continue our struggle. Meanwhile, the Principals Union has said that suppressing teachers and principals is not ethical. Suppressing teachers and principals isn't ethical. That is because we aren't violent mobs. We don't destroy national assets or resources. Therefore, we do not display misconduct. If we are staging a protest, that would be because our problems haven't been resolved.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has said he will not allow Sri Lanka to be used in efforts that threaten India's security. He made these remarks at a meeting with Indian Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla today.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had said India should not have any suspicion on Sri Lanka's relations with China. The Indian Foreign Secretary had accepted the President's remarks on the need to implement decisions after obtaining the people's support by outlining its advantages and disadvantages. Sri Lanka's needs to identify the weaknesses and strengths of the 13th Amendment had figured at the meeting. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had pointed out that this was why he invited the Tamil diaspora and Tamils living overseas at the UN General Assembly. The Indian Foreign Secretary had said that the friendship between the two countries can be strengthened as they have similarities. Settling matters surrounding the Trincomalee oil tank farm, exchanging powers and the promotion of the tourism industry had been discussed at the meeting. Attention was also drawn to resolve the long-standing problems faced by fishermen in both countries. The Indian Foreign Secretary left the country this afternoon, marking the end of his 3-day official visit.
Trade unions in the country are heavily opposing the sale of oil, electricity and port resources in Sri Lanka. They met with the Mahasangha to discuss the matter today.
The trade union members attempted to meet the chief prelate of the Siam Sex Askiri chapter, Venerable Varakagoda Sri Gnanaratana Thera in Kandy. However, the meeting couldn't go ahead as COVID-19 prevention measures were in place. They handed over a memorandum to the temple afterwards. The trade unions then met with the chief registrar of the Siam Sex Askiri chapter, Venerable Dr. Madhugama Dhammananda Thera. The problem is that our country needs a national policy like foreign nations. They must feel the need to manage national assets regardless of any political problem that may exist. That is what we call patriotism. They bear different views in the government and the opposition. We are suffering in a debt trap because all governments have deceived us. We hope that our resources will belong to our country alone. That is because a government which is appointed for a few years doesn't have the power to disown national assets. We hope to bring an end to this. Although we haven't spoken about it in public, we have informed those responsible about it. The actions of the rulers show whether they have accepted our views or not. At this rate, they seem to be going forward by disregarding the Mahasangha and Mahaviharayas. We must admit that this is a dangerous situation. The trade unionists met with Askiri chapter's deputy registrar, Shrastapati Naram Panave Ananda Thera. We have always opposed this. Fortunately, all governments that came to power haven't spoken about it. They criticize such moves when they are in the opposition. That is what has happened since we gained independence. Unfortunately, they act against us being elected on our votes. As voters, we have to think of alternatives. We won't have a country to live if this continues.
පරණ කතාවක් තියෙනවා එක්කෝ ඉතින් අනුනියමක් කියන දේ අහන්න ඕනේ එහෙම නැත්නම් තමන් හිතාමතා කරන්න ඕනේ. ඔය දෙකම නැත්නම් ඉතින් මෙහි රටේ වාද කියන්නේ. ඕක තමයි ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙන්නේ.
While farmers battle an acute shortage of fertilizer, the rest of the citizenry are scampering to purchase what little stocks are left of milk powder, gas and sugar. Salary discrepancies faced by teachers and principals is another contentious topic in the country. It is in this context that the Frontline Socialist Party and the Jatika Janabalawegaya held a special meeting today. They claimed it was aimed at opposing emergency regulations used to suppress dissent.
The meeting took place at the headquarters of the Jatika Janabalawegaya in Batharamulla.
When they implemented emergency laws, they said it was done because cost of goods had gone up. They said these laws are required to control the prices of sugar and rice. By today, they haven't controlled the cost of rice. It is the members of a mafia in Polonnaruwa that are controlling these rates. They are announcing the prices of rice. They are not controlling prices or raiding storages. It is clear that this was just a farce to cover this month. Their objective was to suppress the working class and to suppress the flag they had been drawing. We have decided to launch a widespread struggle by carrying out protests in and outside Parliament against these acts of suppression. We will then decide whether we can move forward under a broader agreement. That will be decided based on the situation in the future.
Earlier, authorities had instructed farmers on how to produce organic fertilizer for the Yalla season on their own. But now they say that organic fertilizer would be imported for the Maha cultivation season. What will be the fate of these farmers? Will there be a solution for the fertilizer shortage in the country? Farmers of Hintale Ukulankulama who face these uncertainties staged protests in their fields today.
The cultivation season has now begun, but we don't have fertilizer. Farmers who cultivate corn and finger millet have already cultivated their crops. They are now waiting for fertilizer. Some organizations are trying to sell garbage from other countries as organic fertilizer. Farmers only have one thing to say now.
විකුණන්න හදනවා අද සමහර සමාගම් අපේ දැන් මේ ගොවි ජනතාවත් කියන්නේ ඇමතිතුමනි මෙන් උඹේ කටේ පස් අපේ කටේ පස් කියලා වෙලා තමයි දැන් මේ බොහෝ ගොවි ජනතාව කියන්නේ මේ පුරන් වෙන කුඹුරු දිහා බල බල.
There's no point of these farmers waiting at home staring at those barren lands. They will meet you with their tools. It will be their last resort.
ඔබතුමාලා හම්බ වෙන්න එන එක තමයි ඉතුරු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ආට පක්ෂ ගොවි ජනයනි ගොවි ජනයනි ගොවි බලයක් ගොඩ නගන්න ගොවි බලයක් ගොඩ නගන්න ගොවි ජනයනි.
This was the situation in the Aralaganvilla Alut Oya paddy field.
මම මේ කියන්නේ මෙන්න මේ තමයි අපි ඊළඟට යොදා කරන්නේ මෙන්න මේ මිටිගාල ඔබතුමාගේ ගොල්ලකට කාඩේ අපි මුළු මන්ත්‍රීතුමාට ඇමතිලාට කාඩ ගන්නේ මෙන්න මේවා තමයි අපි ඊළඟට ගෙවන්නේ මේවා තමයි ගෙවන්නේ අපිට කරන්නේ මේවා තමයි අපිට කාඩ නැහැ බොන්නේ නැහැ අපි බඩියට ඊළඟ කන්නේ මැරෙන්නේ නැහැ අපේ දරුවත් එක්ක.
A tense situation arose at the seasonal meeting of the Madirigiriya Cowdula farming community. The Polonnaruwa district secretary had chaired the meeting.
ඔබතුමාලා තීන්දුවක් ගන්න. හැබැයි මට සිද්ධ වෙනවා මගේ වරේ පාවිච්චි කරලා ඉවරලා පෙරකන් රැසිගේ තීන්දුවට ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න. ඒක මම ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා. ඒ නිසා මම තීන්දුවක් අරගෙන මම ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා නම් ඒක විරුද්ධව ක්‍රියා කරොත් ඔයසි මහත්තයා ඒ සමග ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා. ඒක අපි වයිනේ. මේ පොලිසියෙන් දාලා අපි නතර කරන්න හදන්නේ. ඔබතුමාලා එහෙම ඔබතුමාගේ වරේ පාවිච්චි කරනවා අපි ඉස්සරහට.
බලහත්කාරකම් කරවල ගොවි දැන් බලෙන් කරපල්ලා කියලා කියන්න රාජ්‍ය නිලධාරීන්ට බෑ. මේ පාලකයෝයි මේ රාජ්‍ය නිලධාරීන්ටයි වැඩිය හොඳයි අපිට සුද්ධොන්ට යටත් වෙලා හිටියා නම්. ගොවීන් විදියට ලක්ෂ ගණනින් ජනාධිපතිතුමෝ ජනාධිපති කාර්යාලයත් අගමැතිතුමෝ ඔරලියගහ මන්දිරයත් කුසකරණ ඇමතිතුමෝ කාර්යාලයත් වට කරන්න කවුඩුල්ලෙන් එනවා කියන එක තා පැහැදිලිව මේ මොහොතේ ප්‍රකාශ කරන කවුඩුළු ව්‍යාපාර ගොවි සංවිධානයක් විදියට.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa questioned whether attempts are being made to obstruct investigations into the garlic scam.
Have recommendations been obtained from the pricing committee on the sale of garlic to one entity at a cost of 135 rupees a kilo? How did the transaction take place without the knowledge of the subject minister and Sathosa officials? Wasn't this scam revealed until it was for an SMS because it involved officials at Sathosa? Were journalists who reported on this summoned to the CID in an attempt to wipe out media freedom and threaten the media to avoid reporting on such scams in the future?
මාධ්‍ය වෙත තර්ජනය කිරීමේ අරමුණින් නොවේද? සතෝස ආයතනයේ දෙවන්ත පරිමාණයේ
The government admits that a large-scale fraud had taken place with regard to garlic. It had taken place outside the permitted framework. The chairman of Sathosa or its officials had not been informed of this. They are not connected to this. They have made 3 purchases secretly. Neither me, the Prime Minister or the Cabinet had instructed to question journalists on this matter. It was the CID that had collected evidence from the media. The relevant ministry has informed them to avoid doing such things. The CID is on the process of revealing such details.
People formed long queues outside stores to purchase milk powder today. They remained in queues despite the bad weather. These were the views of consumers who queued up to buy milk powder in Nugegoda.
කොරෝනා තියෙන කාලේ අනිත් එක වැස්සේ මිනිස්සු කොයිතරම් අමාරුවේ කියලා.
දැන් මේව වෙනකොට කොරෝනා හැදෙන්නේ නැද්ද? දැන් අපිට අහන්න තියෙන සනීපද කියලා.
People who find it difficult to purchase milk powder and gas during the day spend their nights in fear. In rural Sri Lanka, villagers fear wild elephant attacks. These attacks result in damages to their property or even the loss of their lives. The people of Kotagala in Kakirawa are among those battling the problem. Frustrated villagers had sought the help of wildlife officers to chase away a wild elephant. The wildlife officers had tried to leave the area by saying they had chased it away. But the villagers forced the wildlife officers to spend their night in the village. The problem was settled this morning after an additional wildlife director visited the area. He had promised to chase away the elephants and install a fence.
We now cross over for a short commercial break. Stay tuned to News First.
TV1 News First, main sponsor.
Students complete the ACBT University Entry Foundation in 8 months for 288,000 rupees.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Do your online shopping with Sambole.lk. Home delivery and pickup now available.
Sambole.lk.
Welcome back to the news. Social media services Facebook, WhatsApp and Instagram stopped working for nearly 6 hours yesterday. News First's Miyuki Portia filed this report.
Social media, particularly Facebook, plays a vital role in the spread of news across multiple spheres, including politics and sports, with many relying heavily on these apps for accurate updates and information. Now, it is in this context that the sudden widespread outage of social media was felt significantly across the world.
Facebook, WhatsApp and Instagram stopped working at around 9:15 Sri Lankan time last night. WhatsApp and Instagram are owned by parent company Facebook. In a statement, Facebook said a faulty configuration change was the reason for the outage. It added that data of users had not been affected. Facebook founder Zuckerberg rely on our services to stay connected with the people you care about, unquote. Many small businesses met with severe disruptions to their operations after Facebook and Instagram suffered outages. Businesses that rely on the platform to market products or services were shut out.
Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg's wealth took a hefty blow after the widespread outage, coupled with revelations from a whistleblower.
Mark Zuckerberg's total wealth dropped by $7 billion in a few hours after the outage. This happened as Facebook's stocks dropped by nearly 5%. Facebook employees were unable to enter the building during this period as their access cards were not working. They could not enter into their email accounts either. The disruption comes after a former Facebook employee named Frances Hogan leaked documents. The documents showed how the company is lying on making progress against hate, violence and misinformation. It also showed how Instagram harms teenage girls.
However, the social media outage was not doom and gloom for all netizens. Some even saw it as a break from what they called were toxic platforms.
In addition to the mostly positive responses from users to the crash, others took the opportunity to declare Twitter the best platform, with one person writing, quote, "WhatsApp, Instagram and Facebook are down. I believe Twitter can save the world," unquote. Others expressed feelings of peace as a result of the outage, with someone else writing on Twitter, quote, "So much peace with Facebook, IG and WhatsApp down. So happy to be detached," unquote.
While this outage certainly raised multiple questions over the cause of the blackout, it also highlights to us another important message, and that is the ever-growing influence social media has on our lives and the world at large.
From one outage to another, power outages were reported from several areas in the country, including the southern province. The power cuts were attributed to a failure in the power transmission system. However, the spokesperson to the Ministry of Power, Sulakshana Jayawardena, said power supply was restored to all areas within 30 minutes. Taking a look at more news. Who makes up the committee appointed to assess the possibility of recovering the NMRA's data which was deleted from the government cloud server? The citizenry can only place its trust on a transparent process if it is aware of the members in the committee. Newsfirst queried the Secretary to the State Ministry of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Dr. Saman Ratnayaka, on the matter.
We have taken steps to obtain the report on the deletion of data from the NMRA and are attempting to recover the data. Epic Lanka Technologies has been empowered by the committee to engage in the process of recovering data. This process will be conducted under the supervision of the committee. Epic Lanka will be handling the process of retrieving the data, and the ICTA will step in to support if necessary. Teams from both the Katubadda University and Colombo University will overlook the task. Figures representing the NMRA and the Ministry of Health will overlook the task. We have created an environment conducive for the committee to operate without any influence. According to Epic Lanka Technologies, the data can be retrieved soon. We have not revealed the names of those in the committee to allow them to carry out their tasks, barring any external influence.
The data scam.
While the State Ministry's Secretary expressed such remarks, questions were raised in Parliament yesterday on who forms the committee. An engineer of Epic Lanka Technologies has been arrested for deleting data from the cloud server. Therefore, won't such committees or similar measures further affect the process of uncovering the truth? Couldn't similar incidents occur in storage units containing sensitive data of electronic NICs, passports, court records and bank details? Isn't this a problem to the nation's citizenry?
The data scam.
With uncertainty looming large over the eNMRA database and the subsequent data scam, the Ministry of Justice took its first step towards going digital yesterday.
State Minister of Digital Technology Nama Rajapaksa said in a tweet that digital signatures have been included in the ministry's workflow. He said digitalization is the way to create a more effective and efficient public service. The process is expected to be carried out by other state ministries in the future.
Dr. Siran Daraniyagala, a prehistorian known for his work across the globe and a former Director General of Archaeology, passed away this morning.
Dr. Dharaniyagala joined the Department of Archaeology in 1968 as an assistant commissioner in charge of scientific excavations. Dr. Dharaniyagala was at the forefront of discovering the Fahian cave and was an instrumental figure in the revelation. Excavations at the Gedige site in Anuradhapura had also commenced based on his instructions.
When I was excavating the inner city of Anuradhapura, I found clay pots with letters from 2 locations. We have dated those back to 500 or 600 BC. No one believed that the use of letters existed in the whole of South Asia prior to the rule of King Asoka of India. That ideology changed after this revelation.
Dr. Siran focused on prehistoric explorations and excavations in ancient shore dunes, referred to as the Iranamadu Formation, dating back to over 130,000 years before the present. He used the resulting data to complete a PhD at Harvard University in 1988. He held a Bachelor of Arts and a Master of Arts in Architecture and Cultural Language from the University of Cambridge. Dr. Dharaniyagala is a proud product of St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia, and was one of the last known archaeologists representing the Eknaligora generation. Incidentally, both Siran and his father, Paulus Edward Piris Dharaniyagala, were Director Generals of the Department of Archaeology.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Professor G.L. Piris briefed Parliament on the presentations made to the United Nations on human rights protection in Sri Lanka.
We are open in acknowledging our challenges, and as a responsible and democratic government, we are committed to achieving tangible progress on the entire range of issues relating to accountability, reconciliation, human rights, peace and sustainable development. I adverted to the several national institutions that we support in this effort to sustain and build upon the hard-won peace of 2009. In particular, Mr. Speaker, I stress the importance of the Office on Missing Persons, which, as its core function, is finalizing the list of missing persons in collaboration with other agencies with a view to granting and enabling closure for a number of grieving families. In tandem, the Office for Reparations has processed 3,775 claims this year alone. I wish in passing to stress the role of civil society in these efforts. Representatives of civil society are an integral part of the solutions we wish to devise. They are, Mr. Speaker, not a manifestation of the problem, but an essential component of the resolution of our problem. There have been concerns raised about the supposed government initiatives to stifle NGO activities in Sri Lanka. Nothing could be further from the truth.
If G.L. Piris feels he can make the situation sound good through his speech, we wish to say that it is not us, but the others who must say that Sri Lanka is clean. There is no point in G.L. Piris saying it. The international community must say that we are on the right track. We have failed before the Human Rights Council. We don't know what will happen to the GSP Plus tax facility. No matter how much we ask them to give it to us, they make independent decisions. All ministers are speaking about a foreign exchange crisis. There is a jackpot now that is worth millions. If they bring down that money from that international account to Sri Lanka, we will be able to resolve most of the foreign exchange crisis. The EU team had met with Minister G.L. Piris and the President recently. They had said there is no separation of powers in Sri Lanka. There is no separation of powers between the executive, legislature and the judiciary. All institutions have been brought under the President. The 17th Amendment was brought forward. He voted to abolish the 18th Amendment as well. Then the 20th Amendment was brought forward. He voted to abolish the 19th Amendment. People who engage in such politics can't win the international community.
Up next is Crime Watch.
Crime Watch.
Who murdered the Grama Niladhari officer of Ambanpola?
හිතාගන්න බෑ කවුරු කරාද කියලා මෙච්චර දෙයක්. තාත්තා දෙන්නේ මට මේක යට ගහන්න දෙන්න බෑ එක පොඩ්ඩක්වත්. මෙතන ඉල්ලනවා මේක හොයලා දෙන්න එච්චරයි මං කියන්නේ.
Was the victim run over by a vehicle? Or was he attacked with a weapon? Police have identified the person behind the attack as a railway superintendent in Galgamua. The suspect has testified that the murder was linked to a dispute over his wife's land. The Grama Niladhari officer had given a solution that favoured the other party. The suspect had confessed that this provoked him to carry out a contract killing. He had hired 3 people for 70,000 rupees to carry out the murder. The 3 killers had carried out the murder using a van that they bought on lease. Police are searching for the killer.
Crime Watch.
The Sri Lanka Medical Association says people who recover from COVID-19 should be cautious of their mental health.
An assessment has found that between 20 to 25% of the first 1,000 people who contracted COVID-19 in China had shown signs of depression and stress even after a year. Based on our experience, we can see that people who are highly infected by COVID-19 had shown slight fatigue and difficulties in breathing for around 2 to 3 months. There is no need to be afraid about it. You can consult a doctor if you need medical advice.
අනවශ්‍ය බියක් ඇති කරගන්න එපා. ඔබට වෛද්‍ය අවවාද අවශ්‍ය නම් ඔබට වෛද්‍යවරයෙක් හමු වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
Will restrictions be lifted completely after the 15th of October?
If there is an increase in the number of patients over the next few weeks, I do not think we will be able to take another step forward.
The Asian Development Bank has approved an extra loan of $110 million for a health project in Sri Lanka.
The Asian Development Bank is funding a health system enhancement project in Sri Lanka. The project began in 2018 at a cost of $60 million and is expected to run until 2023. It aims at upgrading health facilities in the central, north central, Sabaragamuwa and Uva provinces. The ADB will now grant an extra loan of $110 million as it expands the project. This would be to strengthen Sri Lanka's COVID-19 response. The 1990 Suez Harrier ambulance service will also be upgraded. The ADB will also provide a grant of $3 million to improve Sri Lanka's ambulance system.
The Narakamulla mountain, situated deep within the Toppigala forest, continues to reveal greater insight into ancient Sri Lanka. Where did the old Ruhuna exist? Who are the descendants of King Kavantissa? The Toppigala excavation has been unearthing many details, unseen and concealed for centuries. Today is day 3 of this News First exclusive report.
Yesterday, we brought to you visuals and details of the cave paintings in the Narakamulla mountain currently being subject to a scientific excavation. Professor Raj Somadeva reveals the caves were later converted to a fully fledged monastery complex for the Mahasangha to reside in. The team was also able to discover new inscriptions from the site after perusing records logged by archaeologists and other explorers on previous occasions. A cave, which is believed to have housed a shrine room, was also added to Sri Lanka's rich history.
මේ සෙල්ලිපිය කරවා තිබෙන්නේ අයතිස නැමැති කෙනෙක්. මේ අයතිස
The inscription was done by one named Ayatissa. We know Ayatissa was another name for King Kavantissa. According to the inscription, Ayatissa has introduced a person named Aya Abhaya as his father. Aya Abhaya is King Kotabaya. Aya Abhaya has named Uparaja Mahanaga as his father. He is an elder brother of King Devanampiyatissa. Ayatissa, who did the inscription, says his father is Gotabaya and his grandfather is King Devanampiyatissa.
එහෙමනම් ඔහු වෙන කෙනෙකු නොව කාවන්තිස්ස රජතුමා බව අපට නිසකයි.
Although our hearts fill with pride at the sight of this inscription, somber feelings came rushing in when we entered the cave. Evidence to support its existence as a shrine room can be witnessed through what looks like a statue of the Buddha. Unfortunately, human activities has led to the destruction of this masterpiece, and all that is left now is ruins. The forest cover thins out when scaling higher up the mountain, and the journey grows tougher due to the mountain's steep incline. A decrepit stupa is situated atop the mountain. However, that too has been pillaged by treasure hunters. The foundation of the stupa, constructed with bricks and stone, has been destroyed. When observing the area surrounding the Narakamulla mountain from the peak of the mountain, we soon realized that this area continues to hide more historical sites and evidence than we have already discovered.
The joint naval exercise held between the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force and Sri Lanka Navy concluded on a successful note off Colombo today. We leave you tonight with visuals from this naval exercise. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Jamal Ratnayaka alongside our sign language interpreter for tonight, Brian De Cruz. Do remember to take care, stay safe and have yourself a good night.